Islam Moors. Let's rise. Face the east, 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
His holy prophet.
His holy prophet.
Noble Jew Ali.
Noble Jew Ali.
Islam. The Prophet warns all Muslims, governors ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical, agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Jew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble Jew Ali. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now, by the same people of our side of the nation that claim that I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Jew Ali. To the members of the Moor Science Temple of America, Islam, this is the instruction from your Prophet Noble Jew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you would be blessed for your good deeds that you saw in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is now on, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Jew Ali. And that's why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see, but cannot see, ears to hear, but cannot hear, lest they would be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but would sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moor. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Jew Ali. Islam. Islam, Moors. So we have Friday 7:30. We have our meeting for the New Brunswick trip for everybody who's going to be attending to that.
Friday coming.
Yeah, Friday on the way. Tesma sent out the link, or Tesma was sent the link, so the link should be sent out this week sometime. It's going to be on the same thing, the GoToMeeting platform. And then Sunday, we're looking to do our first in the park series, our Christy Kits on Sunday. So get your little outdoor chairs or whatever like that ready, and if anybody you know that you want to invite or whatever, we're going to be at Christy Kits on Sunday for that download. Today we got special presentation today. This one is probably about maybe 2-3 years coming that we were supposed to get this set up. So it's here. I'm gonna yield the floor, and you could take note on the screen with regard to everything that we're gonna be presenting today. This is gonna be one of those presentations that's definitely gonna hit you differently. So I'm gonna yield the floor. Brother Heru, you there? Peace more, you're good? You're good to go?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right.
Islam,
The
got
floor.
a family at the temple. Can everybody hear me? Is that okay?
Yeah, I can hear you more.
Okay, great.
If you don't hear anything on our side, I'm just gonna mute our side. But
Okay.
like I said, the chat's there. If anybody has questions, you could put it in the chat, and the brother would answer your questions at the end of the presentation. So if you can, just hold your questions until the end. I yield the floor.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so first I just gotta give my apologies to Cujo and Omar and all my family at the Canaanland Temple because this presentation is late. This is a late presentation. It was supposed to happen well over a year ago, but things got in the way with my own business. And as I was doing some of the background work on this presentation, which really is more of a discussion for all of us to partake in, I just kept discovering new information, and I just didn't feel right doing the presentation without including as much of the information as I possibly could. There's still tons of it more, and this presentation is only a snippet of it, long as it is. But it is very long, so I'm gonna jump right in and start talking. But I just wanted to give my apologies for being late. I know that it's a long time coming. So thank you, Cujo, for giving me the chance to finally put this out here. All right, so this presentation, I didn't even know what to call it. I ended up just calling it Islamism, an old-time religion, and the self-mastery and mystery system of Egypt. And the main question that I want to put out there, because like I said, this is a discussion for all of us, and hopefully it gives us something in the Moorish community that we can do from a practical standpoint in understanding the mystery system that Islamism comes out of, and which Noble Drew Ali brought to us, because I believe that Noble Drew Ali was very aware of all of the information that I'm going to be sharing today. But of course, when he came to us in the state that we were in, like he said in many of his statements, if he told us the truth about everything, we'd basically smelt. So it just Noble Drew Ali left a lot of stuff for us to continue to learn, right? Like he said, to continue to study yourselves. And he said, you won't know for 50 years what it was that I brought you. So a lot of these things that he said left clues to the fact that he was leaving signs and symbols for us to continue to learn from after he passed. So did entheogens give rise to Islamism, our ancestors' a system where Noble Drew Ali went to learn before presenting himself to the Sultan? And this question really came to me out of this statement here from RV Bay Publications. Regardless about how you feel about RV Bay, it's a group of Moors who we have all sort of been initiated by and learned from at different points, and they're well respected. And this snippet on the website says that this booklet so the MHK in Circle 7, was divinely prepared by Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And it is a wonderful oracle with divine instructions for every facet of your life. Some portions are from the Aquarian Gospel, an authorless ancient recording of the Akashic records. And so that really there is what this is all about, the Akashic records. What are the Akashic records? Well, what does that mean? And what was Noble Drew Ali hinting at in trying to teach us about this? A lot of time when we, talk about Egypt, or when people talk about Egypt and they go into Egypt and Kemet, well, they say, oh, those people worshipped crocodiles and beetles and, and cows and stuff like that, which of course is not accurate at all. And they try to pinhole our ancestors into this primitive sort of polytheistic people. Not that there's anything wrong with polytheism, but it wasn't our perspective. And our perspective was really more syntheistic. We have one overarching consciousness which divides itself into a multiplicity of entities to govern the physical and metaphysical world that it is always in the process of creating. And so our ancestors had a way of accessing this information, and that's what the Akashic records are. And today's discussion is looking at how we can get back to accessing those records on our own as well, and using them to benefit our people as a whole. All right, so I had to put this picture in there because just let people know that Egypt is still ours, and that's why the Fez was in this very old advertisement. This is obviously going to be recorded, so you're not going to be write all this stuff down. These are some of the books that I had to at least skim through. I read most of them, but at least skim through for some of this information in the presentation. There's a hell of a lot more. A lot of them are research papers, but I've highlighted the ones that I think are really impactful. So when you have a chance, just come back and pause your screen and write down some of these highlighted books here. The Psychedelic Gospels, the Mushroom and the Cross, the Mushroom and Christian Art, and all the ones, the Into Africa Theory, and all these ones that I've highlighted here, because they've got some great information that you continue to build on. But hopefully this will become more of a series of classes where we can talk about the stuff in this presentation and break it down more analytically as regards to the scripture as well, and the practical portion about how to produce this stuff ourselves in our temple. Okay, so right here, that's me and Baba Kalindi. A lot of this information comes from him. And you know what's funny? Master Kalindi, he never talked about, he talked about Kemet. His main thing was to travel the world talking about the mission system of Kemet. For those who don't know him, he was actually a very high-level martial artist. At one point in time, he was considered to be one of the most dangerous men on earth for his skills in the martial arts. But he was a mycologist, and he traveled the world talking about the secrets of Kemet, being the informational structures contained in the fungi that surrounded the Nile area, that our ancestors stumbled across this fungi when we left Eden and we were traveling the grasslands and the sort of hunter-gatherer paradigm. And so he never really talked about fungi as related to the Moorish divine movement. But the more I dug into what he was talking about, the more Noble Drew Ali came up. And it's actually funny, this kind of come full circle. Before I met Cujo, it was Master Kalindi's DVD on mushrooms that got me to call up Cujo and say, hey, I heard there was a temple here where you had some information. It was actually at Afrofest I got this DVD, and the brother who was selling them told me about the Moorish Science Temple. So it all kind of has come together. But this, my first introduction to Moorish science, little did I know, was actually the sacred pharmacological tools or mushrooms of our ancestors. So we're gonna do 1 and 2 today and try and get through the first half of this presentation, because I've got to cover some concepts here for number 1 before we get on to the really heavy stuff. So introduction, Noble Drew Ali, why fungi? Why is it special? Why is it important? What is man from the perspective of Noble Drew Ali? You can take a look at the Moorish Holy Quran, chapter 1 for that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the planet's history as it was told to me. We're then going to go from there, and after establishing some baseline concepts about fungi and man, to the Moorish symbology of Kemet and Africa, and how it has spread into and is still a part of all the religious structures that exist in the world today in Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. That's why it kind of took a long time to put this together, because we're going to look at all of these religions today, and we're going to prove how the symbology is the same. And then the next part, which we'll do another time, hopefully, is going to look at the chemistry. So the first part is symbology. This part is going to be the brain chemistry, neurotheology versus theoneurology, and what the people in the medical literature have to say about the relationship between entheogenic experiences and the human brain. And then we'll look lastly at the book of Genesis with all this information and try to think about what it was that happened in Eden. Let's get started with some statement clues left by Noble Drew Ali that I think are important. The first part of this intro will be a bit longer. I got to talk a lot, but the next slides, some of them will be really, really quick, just a few seconds, just to show the imagery in the symbology. Some will be longer, some will be short. But this first couple lines, this comes from the book, also known as the Book of Fire, by Dr. Pleasant Bay. We all know him, The Exhuming of a Nation. So the prophet went to Egypt at 16, as in 1902, remained there 10 years when he graduated from the ancient Cometian mystery system. So the prophet was in Egypt. He was in Kemet. He knows what that system is about, and we're going to find out today what they were really doing in their hallowed halls. And then went to present himself before Sultan Saud, the descendant of Hagar, who of course was the princess of Egypt in Islamic tradition. Islamism is often referred to as the ancient Egyptian mystery system. So of course he went to Kemet, attained the degree of prophethood, and came back with Islamism, because that's what it is. It's the Egyptian mystery system. Whether it be in America or Africa, same system. And should not be confused with their children, yoga, Confucianism, Judaism, or Islam, as perfected into the Arabic language by the great prophet Muhammad. And that's a quote from Pleasant Bay's book. So the rest of these lines come from statements of Drew Ali. Of course, no one really knows. I have no way of knowing if the statements that we hear Drew Ali said, if he actually said them. We trust that he said them. There's no way to know for sure, because I didn't meet the man. I didn't hear what he said. But I do know that consistency is its own form of truth. And there is a lot of consistency when we're talking about Noble Drew Ali and the things that he said across the time that he was alive. Islamism is old-time religion. We'll encounter this phrase, old-time religion, later in the literature. The first time I ever heard it was with the Moorish Science Temple, but I did not realize it was a term that is common in the literature of previous periods of time. So it's old-time religion. It's not it just means that it is one of a class of spiritual systems that deal with the stuff we'll be talking about today, which are brain chemistry and entheogens. When the wild beast roamed the earth in large numbers and could hear the large birds flapping their wings at a long distance, it was the Moors that took the sword and went out and slayed the beast so that civilization could come in. To me, that is very indicative of the hunter-gatherer period, right? Prior to the arrival of city-states, at least in this era of time. And what we were doing on the grasslands of the African continent, of course, before the pharaohs gave us permission to travel further west. Noble Drew Ali is talking about that time period, that we were there in the grasslands dealing with the wild beasts. So this is an important period to him, because he mentions it, and he does say, every word that I say is spirit, so you Moors better heed. Study, study, study. And when you have studied everything, would ask me what to study next, I would say, study yourselves, or yourselves, however you want to read that. But without a doubt, Islamism is a form of self-mastery. What we're dealing with is understanding the self in all its aspects. That is what Islamism is. And of course, that code, that acronymical code that we always use there to remind us that I, self, law, and master. This is about self-mastery and knowing who we are and what we are. Signs and symbols are for men of understanding, which to me, he's just letting us know it will take time before everything I brought you begins to come together. It takes time and practice to attain understanding. It doesn't come right away. It will take 50 years to find out what I brought you. He said that in the 1920s, we can assume, prior to he passed away. And of course, 50 years after that, in the 1970s, the latter 1970s, the psilocybin movement restarts 50 years after he said that. Because of course, this movement relates particularly to us. And you know that Noble Drew Ali was working through the Europeans like he said he would to return our stuff to us. I brought you everything it takes to save a nation. Now take it and save yourselves. But man will regain his lost estate, his heritage, but he must do so in a conflict that cannot be told in words. We're going to go over that in a couple slides from now. When the fire comes, I will be the water. Of course, psilocybin has often been known to our ancestors as the fountain of youth because it is 90% water for the most part. And a big one, I took the cover off all of the secret organizations. We're going to see some of that in the symbology today. So I wanted to play this because I believe it gives a good overview of what our ancestors knew about fungi. It's kind of weird that we're talking about fungi because people think, well, that's kind of random. Where does that come from? But as we're going to see in this slide, our ancestors knew the things that we are going to hear about in this presentation, about how special fungi is to the origins of life and its role in begetting life on the planets that life thrives, ours in particular. So let's just move on to where I marked it down, 2:30. And we'll go for a few minutes just to get a chance to hear about the wonders of this entity that our ancestors knew.
Rot, but I propose to you that the sequence of microbes that occur on rotting mushrooms are essential for the health of the forest that give rise to the trees that create the debris fields that feed the mycelium. And so we can see a mushroom here sporulating, and then the spores are germinating, and the mycelium forms and goes underground. In a single cubic inch of soil, there can be more than 8 miles of these cells. My foot is covering approximately 300 miles of mycelium. This is photomicrographs from Nick Reed and Patrick Hickey. And notice that as the mycelium grows, it conquers territory, and then it begins to net. I've been a scanning electron microscopist for many years. I have thousands of electron micrographs. And when I was staring at the mycelium, I realized that there are microfiltration membranes. We exhale carbon dioxide, so does mycelium. It inhales oxygen, just like we do. But these are essentially externalized stomachs and lungs. And I present to you the concept that these are extended neurological membranes. And in these cavities, these microcavities form, and as they fuse soils, they absorb water. These are little wells. And inside these wells, the microbial communities begin to form. And so the spongy soil not only resists erosion, but sets up a microbial universe that gives rise to a plurality of other organisms. I first proposed in the early 1990s that mycelium is Earth's natural internet. When you look at the mycelium, they're highly branched. And if there's one branch that is broken, then very quickly, because of the nodes of crossing, internet engineers maybe call them hot points, there's alternative pathways for channeling nutrients and information. The mycelium is sentient. It knows that you are there. When you walk across landscapes, it leaps up in the aftermath of your footsteps, trying to grab debris. So I believe the invention of the computer internet is an inevitable consequence of a previously proven biologically successful model. The Earth invented the computer internet for its own benefit, and we now, being the top organism on this planet, is trying to allocate resources in order to protect the biosphere. Going way out, dark matter conforms to the same mycelial archetype. I believe matter begets life. Life becomes single cells become strings become chains network. And this is the paradigm that we see throughout the universe. Most of you may not know that fungi were the first organisms to come to land. They came to land 1.3 billion years ago. and plants followed several 100 million years later. How is that possible? It's possible because the mycelium produces oxalic acids and many other acids and enzymes, pockmarking rock and grabbing calcium and other minerals and forming calcium oxalates, makes the rocks crumble, and the first step in the generation of soil. Oxalic acid is two carbon dioxide molecules joined together. So fungi and mycelium sequester carbon dioxide in the form of calcium oxalates, and all sorts of other oxalates are also sequestering carbon dioxide through the minerals that are being formed and taken out of the rock matrix. This was first discovered in 1859. This is a photograph by Franz Huber. This photograph was taken in 1950s from Saudi Arabia. 420 million years ago, this organism existed. It was called Prototaxides. Prototaxides, laying down, was about 3 feet tall. The tallest plants on Earth at that time were less than 2 feet. Dr. Boyce at the University of Chicago published an article in the Journal of Geology this past year determining that Prototaxides was a giant fungus, a giant mushroom. Across the landscapes of Earth were dotted these giant mushrooms all across most land masses, and these existed for tens of millions of years. Now, we've had several extinction events, and as we march forward 65 million years ago, most of you know about it, we had an asteroid impact. The Earth was struck by an asteroid, a huge amount of debris was jettisoned into the atmosphere, sunlight was cut off, and fungi inherited the Earth. Those organisms that paired with fungi were rewarded, because fungi do not need light. More recently at Einstein University, they just determined that fungi use radiation as a source of energy, much like plants use light. So the prospect of fungi existing on other planets elsewhere, I think, was a foregone conclusion, at least in my own mind. The largest organism in the world is in Eastern Oregon. I couldn't miss it. It was 2,200 acres in size. 2,200 acres in size, 2,000 years old. The largest organism on the planet is a mycelial mat, 1 cell wall thick. How is it that this organism can be so large and yet be 1 cell wall thick, whereas we have 5 or 6 skin layers that protect us? The mycelium in the right conditions produces a mushroom that bursts through with.
Okay, so that's enough. Pretty crazy stuff, right? Looking at what mycelium is and can do. Okay, so what did we learn about fungi in that presentation? Because our ancestors knew about it. So forest organisms survive on land. They are sentient, which means it knows that we are there. When you cross over it, it knows you are there and it tries to grasp that information. They're androgynous, and they are far more related to animals than they are to plants. It produces the topsoil and provides for the birth of plant life, which then provides for animal life, which is pretty much the beginning of any creation story. And it bursts through the asphalt, coming out of nothingness, the primordial matter, which we'll talk about later. Dark matter and mycelium share the same archetype. Matter begets life, mycelium begets life, and mycelium provide the informational structures required for the manifestation of planet life. And that right there is what I'm trying to get across before we jump into the symbology, because our ancestors were actively accessing that planetary internet system, which is also a universal internet system, as he demonstrated there with the archetype of dark matter. We'll talk more about how the information structures within the psilocybin mycelium is universal when we talk about the fact that mushroom spores can travel unharmed through the vacuum of space and colonize planets. So mycelium are the communication and physical network of planets on which life evolves. They're the brain, and you got to think they travel through the soil. They create the soil that we rely on for our food. For dust you are, into dust you shall return, right? And mushrooms are often associated with the underworld because fungi eat and recycle the dead. Think about the concept of Anubis, right? And do we re-enter this network when we die? Of course, giant mushrooms were the first plants. And after the great extinction event, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The animals which paired with fungi were rewarded. Of course, there were primates at that time as well. And fungi to this day are implicated in the treatment and identifying of disease because they are so closely related to human cells. Okay, so I wanted to, after talking about fungi, I'm just going to read through this quickly. Again, this is a long presentation, so I just want to provide a foundation to build a case for this. I'm just going to read through this. I'm not going to talk about most of the notes I made, and then we can talk about that stuff at the end. But this is from chapter 1, The Creation and Fall of Man, Noble Drew Ali's Moorish Holy Quran. Time never was when man was not. All finite things will cease to be because there was a time when they were not. But man himself is not the body, nor even the soul. He is the spirit and a part of Allah. So I know we often get sort of caught up in this idea about evolution versus creation, but it doesn't really matter because man isn't the body. And it can inhabit any body on its path to development, which is what we're going to talk about in the rest of this slide. Man is a thought of Allah, was but a seed, or so a blueprint, a DNA, that held within itself the attributes of every part of that special plant. So man, the seed, not so much man the thought, but man the seed, the DNA, must be deeply planted in a soil that he might grow, unfold, as does the bud unfold to show the flower. We're talking about that. The human seed. So we're not talking about man anymore. He makes a distinction here between man and human seed. Man seed and human seed. Why does he change the word? That came forth from the heart of Allah was full ordained, predestined to be the Lord, which as we know means landholder, of the plane of soul and of the plane of things made manifest. So Allah, the husbandman, and this is interesting because people often think husbandman meaning, the opposite of a wife or, the one who ejaculates, right? But really, a husbandman is a farmer, right? Noble Drew Ali was talking about Allah as a farmer, a cultivator. So Allah, the farmer of everything that is, threw forth this human seed into the soil of soul. It grew at pace, which means it evolved quickly. And man became a living soul. And he became the Lord of all the kingdom of the soul. Man, again, not the body, but the thought, the spirit, is the Lord of all the plane of manifest, of protoplasts, so single cell organisms, of minerals, of plant, of beast, but he gave up his birthrights just to gratify his lower self. But man will regain his lost estate, his heritage, origins, or property, but he must do it in a conflict that cannot be told in words. Yea, he must suffer trials and temptations manifold, just like we saw Yahushua suffer the trials in the end of the MHK, in the trials in the temples of Egypt. But let him know that cherubim and seraphim that rule the stations of the sun and spirit of the mighty Allah, who rule the solar stars, are his protectors and his guide, and they will lead to victory. So we learn about man in that from that snippet, Noble Drew Ali, that man is not a body or the soul. It's a spirit, a thought. The DNA of man needed to be placed within a physical entity that would allow it to develop its potential. Man became human as a bud unfolds to show a flower, which means slowly over time. It did not happen right away. We did not become human right away because man isn't human in the first place. So was something created to assist this process? Was something created to assist the process of man becoming human over time, right? As a bud unfolds to show a flower slowly. Man is meant to be the landowner of both the physical and metaphysical realm, but man, not necessarily in our human form, but man gave up its birthright to lordship over the earth in order to gratify its lower self. Perhaps that means the bodies that we were going to inhabit. Man will regain its heritage, its property, or Eden, or the physical world, in a conflict that cannot be told in words. What does this mean? Does this mean that our property will be regained by returning to the realm of Allah, the realm of spirit, the realm of man, and influencing or creating the physical reality that we desire? And lastly, seraphim and cherubim will help guide us, which I found to be very interesting, because what are seraphim and cherubim? Oftentimes we hear those words and we think angels, but let's look at a more concise definition of that. So this is from the I can't even see where I put that. Sorry, guys. It's from an etymological dictionary, and it says that seraph, first used by Milton, probably an analogy of cherubim. So same or similar words. And it goes through a list of where this comes from, and probably literally means the burning one, from seraph, meaning it burned. Seraphs were regarded as burning or flaming angels, though the word seems to have some etymological sense of flying, perhaps from confusion with the root of the Arabic sharafa, to be lofty. Some scholars identified with the word found in other passages interpreted as fiery, flying serpent. When we get to part 2 of this lecture, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but it is often considered that it was meteor showers that deposited psilocybin spores into the Earth's soil. And that is what gave rise to the deities that we speak of, because we ingested the psilocybin spores and we encountered these deities while we were still on the grasslands. And here is a quote from Master Kalindi on a podcast that he did. Sorry, the same type of algorithms that are in the soil are also in the stars, because many people postulate the mushroom spores, which are basically immortal in the vacuum of space, permeate the galaxy. When they find a place that is wholesome for them to be able to grow and flourish, that is what they do. The psilocybin spores came here where they could proliferate and grow from extraterrestrial or asteroid impacts. They then found a creature that could decode and deconstruct their information. What we're going to see with the pictures and the symbology that our ancestors used in the Medu Neter is that our ancestors knew about this. They knew that the algorithms in the soil are the same as the ones in the stars. We're going to see more about that. So I did not choose this picture to trigger anybody. No, I'm not saying and do not think that we evolved from apes or monkeys the way that some of the adherents to Darwinism think. But we have to remember that man is not the body. In other words, man is not really human. This human form of us is just one version of man. We don't even know if it's the final version of man. We might still evolve and become something else, because man is, we don't know if it's still unfolding as the bud does the flower. We're still evolving. We're still learning. So now I want to talk about this story, and this will be the last long part, and we can finally get into this, some of the more important symbology and stuff. But the stories that was told to me is that in its inception, Africa was a rainforest. It was a rainforest from the very top to the very bottom. And we lived in this rainforest on a fruitarian diet. So fruits, nuts, probably insects that were there. And it was an Eden-like environment, right? You just pick up and grab a fruit from the tree if you're hungry, or some nuts if you're hungry. I'm not saying we walked on all fours, but there was no need to walk on 2 legs, because everything is very compact in a jungle, in a rainforest, and the entire continent was like that. It'd be much more efficient, in fact, to clamber around using all limbs. But something happened. The asteroid impact that created the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. It was a huge asteroid, as we know, right to the dinosaurs, 5 kilometers wide. It was traveling at such high speeds. By the time it hit the Earth, it was already miles into the planet, and it threw up dust at very fast speeds, Mach speeds, which blocked out the sun for a long time. This is what that gentleman was speaking about in that TED talk earlier. And it caused great climatic changes to the planet. And in Africa in particular, those rainforests began to get drier. And they continued to dry out for millions of years. And as the trees grew apart, and there were less of them, we entered a new paradigm of grasslands. Never been grasslands before on Earth. And so we had to travel this environment and navigate this new topography, this new landmass. And that introduced us to different foodstuffs, right? There were great predators walking these plains as well. The megafauna were much different than today, very, very large. And we're quite small. And coming from an environment with rainforests, we're not really equipped to do battle with these types of entities. The grass is very, very tall, much taller than we were if we were climbing around. So, you have a lot of anthropologists asking the question, why did we decide to stand up? Well, if we did decide to stand up, if we did, it would have been because we had to see over the grass. And over time, you get practice. You realize, okay, well, I got to stand up as long as I can to see who's coming before I can go over there and try to get the food over there, or get to my friend over there, or get to that tree over there. And it just became more efficient to stand up so we can always see the predators coming to get us. And those who, of course, couldn't stand up, they didn't make it. So we have new food stuff now, eating grains, barley and millet, and stealing meat from predators because we weren't really equipped, to fight them off and stuff like that. We're not used to going to war with lions and whatnot, and saber-toothed tigers, because we're used to picking food off trees. And in following the cattle, we discovered these mushrooms growing from the dung, while our women also discovered agriculture. And when we were traveling the grasslands and encountering these huge mushrooms, they would have been really, really big, as big as a child sometimes. We began, of course, to eat them. This is over many, many hundreds of thousands of years, and millions of years. So, you see something again and again, you're going to try it. And what happened was that we realized that, okay, well, if we eat this mushroom, our vision clears up, our eyesight improves. We can see things more clearly. We can see predators more clearly. We can see foreigners more clearly. We can see plants and distinguish between flora much more clearly. So we realized that it gives us food, it gives us water. It's an adaptive advantage. It gives us better vision. Let's just keep eating it. So we did. And if you've ever eaten these mushrooms, if you get to a certain dosage, they become very, very, very potent aphrodisiacs. No mean to be crude, but you could take Viagra, you could take Cialis, and your dick will get hard, but it's a very different type of arousal and what do we call uppityness that you get when you eat certain doses of this mushroom. You can't sleep. You can't sleep because sex is on the brain, and unless you get rid of your urge, you know what I mean, you're not going to be able to relax or fall asleep. It's a very, very powerful aphrodisiac. It's true central nervous system arousal. And of course, in smaller tribes, that also gives an adaptive advantage, because you're thinking about sex more, you're having more sex, your population increases more, right? So we kept eating it because it gave us all these great things, no more excuses from your wife not to do it because, she's horny too, right? Everyone's horny as hell eating these things. So we kept eating them. And then that was when we encountered the third stage of ingestion of these mushrooms, which we call the numinosum, or the mystery. And this numinosum, this mystery, was the experience that allowed us to interact with the deities that we speak of in Kemet, with the family of Ra. And that's where we got the information structures about geometry, clothing, music, mathematics, architecture, weaponry. And it was our encounters with the information exposed to us in the mycelium, in this mushroom, that launched the first city-states. And that's how the first city-states came to be, was because of the information that we received when ingesting very high doses of this mushroom. And it's not just me saying that, you're going to see the pictures yourself. So stone ape hypothesis. This was a joke when it first came out, but now scientists are starting to think about, well, wait a minute, this might have some real legitimacy. Terence McKenna is the gentleman who sort of reinvigorated the psilocybin movement in the 70s. Like I said, 50 years after Nobel Jubilee, said it would take 50 years before we know what he brought us. And he posited that as humans began to migrate to new areas, at some point we came upon these mushrooms, like as I just said. And after ingesting them, our brains kicked into overdrive, acquiring new information processing capabilities and a mind-blowing expansion of our imaginations. Many modern users of psychedelics claim the world never looks the same after such an experience. And so, as McKenna put it, Homo sapiens, we ate our way to a higher consciousness. it was at this time that ritual, countermaking, and natural magic came into their own. In other words, physically, we are apes. Not that we evolved from apes, but we are apes in terms of we have opposable thumbs, flexible hands and wrists, and we come from a placenta, right? We're mammals in which nutrients from the mother is passed on to the child, and we have a higher brain function. So in a physical sense, we are apes. Not that we evolved from apes, it's what we are physically, our hardware, but our software is different. It's like any computer system. You have a shitty ass computer and with Windows 94, and then someone gives you Windows XP. If you put it on the same shitty computer, the computer will still run better. It will still run smoother. It will be less buggy. Even though the hardware hasn't changed, the hardware functions better because the software is upgraded. And it's the same way with us, you know, and of course, a higher level of software will over time make smaller changes to the hardware as well. Last thing here I want to talk about before getting into the presentation is just this. I thought this was kind of cool. One of the last things I realized was that that guy who was speaking is actually involved in a project with NASA. Now, I know we all feel different ways about NASA, you know, that they're this and that, that they're not real, this and that. But the point is, there was recognition about the intergalactic potential of mycelium, mushroom spores, and what they are able to do for living entities, including planets, in terms of creating habitats where these informational structures can be translated so that life on those planets can grow. And that is the power that is beheld in the mycelium that we're about to jump into. Okay, that's out of the way now. Let's get into the fun stuff. And now we have a bit of a foundation to talk about some of the actual symbology. And I put these pictures up here so you guys would know what sort of symbols we're going to be looking at here. Some are cultural, some are, you know, are spiritual. And there's a prophet right there. I think that's a symbol right there too. We'll talk more about it because everything Noble Julie did meant something. The clothes he wore, the postures he was in, everything he did meant something. And so, yeah, let's jump into it. So these are some of the first mushroom paintings that our ancestors were drawing on the caves. This is the Sahel Plateau in Algeria, about 9,000 BC, so roughly, you know, 11, 12,000 years ago. And you see, it's actually a dried mushroom. Now, I should have I've got lots of these in my freezer right now. I should have photographed a dry one and put it up there beside, so you can see the similarities. But that's basically a dry mushroom, and inside the mushroom, we drew mushrooms, mushroom-headed people. Why were we drawing mushroom-headed people inside of mushrooms? What did we see inside these mushrooms that made us draw this? Because I'm going to tell you that my hypothesis that psilocybin isn't really just an entity. It's actually a place. It's an infinite amount of places, actually, that you are permitted to witness when you ingest a high enough amount of them, as our ancestors did, which you're going to see in a moment. And so, of course, there's always that great debate. Aliens, are they real physical things, or are they only interdimensional things? Of course, all the stuff we're going to get into a little bit more. This is a great book. I didn't put it in, I don't think I put it in the table of content or the reference section, but it's a separate reality. It talks about this gentleman's experience in the mushroom societies in Mexico. Of course, we all know who's in Mexico, right? The Mauritanian race. That's all our stuff. And talks about his experience is there and what happened when he ingested these mushrooms and where he went and what he saw. Very revealing stuff. Great book to read. Here's a great one too. The Bee Shaman. Look at this. Here is a bee with mushrooms growing out of his body and hands. Now, we all know that bees don't hold mushrooms. We all know that bees don't grow mushrooms out of their body, right? And so why would we draw this? We all know that bees don't walk around on two legs. We know that too, but yet we drew this. It's called the shaman, the bee shaman, and it's not really a shaman because the real shaman are out in Siberia. We'll deal with that stuff later. But the reason that we drew this image of the bee is because when the mushrooms became, like I said, Africa became dry. We encountered these mushrooms, but Africa still got drier. It became so dry that even the mushrooms became hard to find. And after a time, the mushrooms told us, look, we are going to disappear soon. You can still keep us by preserving us in honey. The mushroom gave us information that we needed to know on how to make them last as long as possible, because we were entering a period where they would not be as available. And so bees are sacred to us because their honey allowed us to prolong our spiritual system. Here's another picture. This is not a mushroom painting, really. It's just a picture off the temples of our walls, but it's a beehive, right? And you see these gentlemen withdrawing the honey. And what are they placing? What are they placing into the hive? That is the question I want us to think about, because you're going to see this white sort of ovally shape a few times today, and it's always going to be in the context of mushrooms being fed to somebody. So if you ask me, these are mushroom caps being placed into the honey. And you can make your own decision about that as we move forward. I'm just being facetious here. I mean, these are cone heads. I mean, I found it kind of funny. That's why I put them in there. But you can see we also do this. Beside the cattle, we have cone head shaped entities. We're assuming they're humans. We don't know. With the cattle, why are we drawing these sort of, look at that shape, stem and cap, right? This mushroom cone head shaped entities with the cattle. I just found it kind of, funny that they had this show called Coneheads. They're always sort of making a joke about us without us really knowing that the joke is on us, right? We drew this stuff. Here's something else. You can see us here attending the cattle, attending to the cattle on the plains here. It actually looks like a rhino, but anyway, there it is. That's the head tip right there. Men and cattle. And again, look at this big picture of the cattle right here and the horns. The horns, very important symbol, right? Why are we spending so much time drawing this stuff? Is it just because the cattle gave us meat and milk? Well, we're going to find out. And again, here's almost like a shrine that we had dedicated to the cattle, that our ancestors worshiped cows. Do we think cows were gods? No, we did not. My argument is no, we did not. We did not worship crocodiles and cows and beetles. We understood their place in the informational structures that we were given access to through the psilocybin mycelium. Here's the last big one. Look at that. Y'all tell me you ain't seen this symbol before. It looks a lot like a star and a crescent to me. This will come up again and again. The Society of the Two Horns. This is actually something that I learned about from some brothers who were once at the Moorshrooms temple, right? We won't get into agriculture. That's the stuff we're going to get forward with this presentation. But the cattle, we drew the cattle with stars in the horns because of its relationship to the stars, to the galaxies, through the mushrooms that grew on its dung. Let's get into the dung beetle here. So we all know about the god Khepri. And here's a real dung beetle. And look how we exaggerated that picture of the dung beetle to include this stem and mushroom cap, as we're going to see here. And look at this, horns and a sun disk, right? Horns or a crescent star or a crescent moon and a sun disk. A lot of these symbols. What is this symbol that we keep seeing everywhere, the symbol of this disk? Right, you can see the beetle itself, it's got that mushroom shape, right? The stem and the cap. And here too, when we drew it, we drew this baboon, right? With a little stem here. You can see I kind of drew it for you guys in red, and this being the cap, because we hid mushroom images in all of our art. We'll talk more about this symbol right here of the horns and the sun disk above as well. And again, the mushroom stem and the cap here. Beetles don't hold sun disks, so why is it doing that? So here's a little video about the dung beetles. And this is what they do. Because as we can see here to the right, look what the dung produces. The dung produces all these mushrooms right here. And our ancestors didn't believe in men with beetle heads. There's something we were about. It's because of what the beetle did for us, organizing the dung to make the mushrooms proliferate more easily and more readily. And that's what the dung beetle does. So Khepri and the mushroom, the first primordial god. What is the dung beetle? It renews in the morning sun. What you're going to see is really the disc, the mushroom cap, and gave birth to itself. So all the gods are given birth by the dung beetle. And do we believe that gods come out of horse shit? No. It's not about the fact that we worshipped dung or worshipped gods that came out of dung. It's because we knew that the deities we met through the mushroom, and the mushroom came to us from the dung. The dung is a primordial chaos out of which life was renewed each morning, because the mushrooms would just boom, sprout out of there, almost out of nowhere every single day. That's why Khepri is also often shown as a mushroom. Here's just another image of us, quote unquote, worshiping the dung beetle. No, we're not worshiping insects. We're saying that thank you to the dung beetle for helping to organize the entheogens within the dung. So now we're talking about the sacred cow in this image. So did our ancestors really believe that a cow, which is Het Heru, Hathor, Het Heru means house of Heru. Did we really believe that a cow was the mother of a falcon? Because that's what they say about us, right? That we believed in these things, that a hawk or a falcon came from the womb of a cow. No, we didn't believe that cows gave birth to birds. It's not that we believed that. It's that we understood that the cow that is, or Hathor, is the Het Heru, the house of Heru. Because as we're going to see, Heru is one of the first deities that we encountered when we ingested these mushrooms. You see here again the symbol of the horns and the mushroom cap, right? The circle within the circle. We're going to see more of that. Look at this symbol, very important symbol, right? Star and crescent, the horns and the mushroom cap. Something over here looks like stems and upturned mushroom caps. And why is the cow have blue dots? We know that cows don't have blue dots because the mushroom turns blue when it's handled. And this is the color coding secret about Het Heru, the mother of Heru. So we're going to entertain this symbology now. We can see here the original horns and star. And even in alchemical astrology, the symbol for the moon is this, the symbol for the sun is this, right? The circle within the circle, the circle within the circle, the circle within the circle, circle within the circle, the stem and the cap, and the horns representing the cow from which it came. So here's a legend code that we're dealing with in ancient Kemet. The mushroom cap is actually the sun disk, which is a star, and this the circle. It's 360 degrees of information. The sun or star is the eye of Ra, as we know. Ra is the quote unquote sun god, right? The eye of Ra is a mushroom cap. This is the original, this right here is the actual original symbol for the eye of Ra. The eye of Heru and the eye of Ra are different. The eye of Ra is this. It's a circle within a circle. It's a circle within a circle. It's a mushroom cap. Even the name Osiris is the Greek term that means many-eyed. So like I said before, this stuff deals with the vision. Deals with what you see. And of course, circle within a circle is a mushroom cap, which is the sun and the star. So Het Haru and the all-seeing eye. How can a cow mother a bird? Let's look closely at this cow right here, because what I see is the eye of Haru. I see the horns, and I see this disc. And if you look closely at this cow is made of stems and caps. Look, it's a stem and it's a cap. This is from the walls of Kemet. A circle within a circle. Why is this cow composed of mushroom caps and stems? And if they're not mushroom caps and stems, then what the hell are they? Right? You see right here, the eye. And the mushroom caps and stems in the body of the cow, in the body of Hathor, the body of Het Haru. And here we go again. Look at this. I'm going to blow this picture up later so you guys can see. But look at these, the circle within the circle. And this, once again, this half oval sort of image that this gentleman here is feeding these mushroom caps. Look in the kata below it. It's all symbology, right? He's feeding the mushroom caps to somebody, which we'll see who it is in a second. The cap, look at the circle in the circle. Circle in the circle. Tell me this is not the same thing? Circle in the circle. Circle in the circle. It's the same thing. And the cow and the cow. And again, here is a humanized version of Hathor, right? Again, we have the circle in the circle. This one's even got rays coming out of it, which we'll talk about later, and the horns. And the cow right there. And the circle in the circle. All the symbology is pointing to something. Mushrooms, mushroom caps inside the cow. Look at this. Look at Beyonce. She's rocking it. She gets it. She gets it. She got the cow outfit, and on her head, this is from her Black is King thing that she did. Look at that. Horns in the sun disk. Same thing. Horns and the sun disk, the star. Horns and the sun disk, the star. Right? Horns and the sun disk. We're going to get to the Ankh and that sort of stuff later. And again here, with upturned flowers and mushrooms, we don't know. Again, that symbol. And the bird. And again, we see more of it. Look at the color coding over here. I put a picture of a baby mushroom here so you guys can see. When they're babies, they have a whitish stem and a brownish red cap. Look at the color of the baboons, white and brownish red, right? All of that. Again, the horns and the mushroom cap. And popular culture, right? We see these symbols everywhere in literature. Why is this symbol so prevalent? This horns and the star here. Even in Islam, right? The crescent star, the crescent and the star. It looks the same to me. The sun is a star after all. The rays of Ra. So if you look at a mushroom spore, they actually have these rays coming out of them. Look at that, just like this, right? Circling the circle and the rays coming out. Same thing, the rays coming from the circle. Is it a sun or is it a mushroom cap or is it both? Because Ra is the mushroom cap in the symbology. And again, this is some of the more modern Kemetic art that we see at museums and places like that. Look at this, it's a circle in a circle, and there's rays coming from the inner circle. A circle in a circle, and there's rays coming out of it. Is it a sun, or is it a mushroom cap, or is it both? Same thing. This is a dried cap, right? Circle, and the rays, or the gills coming out, and the gills are shown as rays. Look at this. Now we talked about the vision. We all know this movie, The Lord of the Rings, right? The Eye of Haru. Look at this. We have a stem, and at the top of the stem we have the horns and the mushroom cap, the circle within the circle. You telling me that this aren't the same thing? This, right? The horns or the crescent and the great eye, or the circle within the circle, right? That's what an eye is. Even has the flames on the outside. Look at that. Even has the flames, right? Because the falcon, Haru is a falcon, because like I said, at low doses, the mushroom gives you the vision, the physical vision. At high doses, it gives you the spiritual vision, the vision to see what is behind you and to see what is ahead of you. And Osiris means the many-eyed. Look at Sauron's eye right here. You tell me this in the same symbol? It's exactly the same symbol as what we have seen. Eyes and mushroom caps, the symbology, and the stem right here. The Tower of Sauron is a mushroom. That's what we're dealing with. We'll talk about this more when we get to Judaism. So again, and again, I have no idea who these are. There might be someone you know or not, but yeah, here are an example of the mushrooms growing out of cake. Look at that symbol there. You can see the stem again, the horns in the circle in the circle, the circle in the circle, the circle in the circle. That's the legend code I'm trying to establish today. And here again, a small version of the cap inputted on for you guys to see a circle in the circle. Okay, let's get into the mushroom bodies and the hidden hieroglyphs. This is good stuff. Now look at this shape right here. I'm going to say that this is, you can see where I'm doing my mouse. The stem and the mushroom cap. Don't forget his hat, as we're going to investigate in a second here, and his green skin. This is all going to come back around in this symbology in a second. All right. Now, I can't actually see the references here that I wrote down because I'm on a full screen vision here. But yeah, maybe I should I'll do this one for the next little part so you guys can see what I'm reading from. Okay, so right here, this is from the literature, right? The ethnomycological origin of Egyptian crowns and esoteric paintings of Egyptian religion and art. I'm just going to go back to the full screen so you guys can see. Look at this. The crown of a sar is exactly the same shape as a mushroom. The mushrooms are babies. This is what they look like. Look at that, right? The stem and the cap. The stem and the cap. Stem and the cap. The stem. It's so obviously a cap because look how they differentiate in the art. The stem and the cap. It's exactly the same thing. This is what answers we're dealing with. The hat represents the mushroom. Let me just pull out here. Again, look at this. I'm going to read to you. This is not me saying this. This is from the literature. Okay. I'll get the origins of this for you guys too. But shoot. Yeah, this is from the same. Okay, this is from the same book. So Osiris is what the writing says here. I know it's hard to read. Osiris in his typical, remember Osiris means the many-eyed, in his typical mushroom-like pose. Amanita muscaria, or for us, Psilocybin cubensis. Particularly noteworthy is the striking resemblance of Osiris's hands bared to the annulus, which is just on the mushroom cap. And look at this here. Look at this rod and this staff. Is this not a mushroom, y'all? Look at that stem and the cap right here. Here's a cap right here. Here's a stem right here. Stem and the cap. This is hidden mushrooms in the hieroglyphs. Look at this psalm that we all know. Lord is my shepherd, I shall lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me to water in places of repose. He renews my life. He guides me in right paths that befits his name. Though I walk through a valley of deepest darkness, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, as I have encircled you in blue, they comfort me. David knew what was going on, and the mushroom will sometimes take you to places of triple thick black darkness, darkness that it's so thick with black dark that you can feel the darkness at high doses of this mushroom. And that's what David's talking about right here. But he doesn't fear it because he knows the mushroom is with him. It's going to keep him safe, bring him back home. Now, what is the annulus? The annulus, like I said previously, is the ring-like or collar-like structure found on the stipe of some species of mushrooms right there. Look at the hands. That's the mushroom. There are the hands, which is this right here, the annulus, right? You can see even these mushrooms that maybe I grew. You can see right there when the veil breaks off, this is what it forms, the annulus. This is all in the literature. It's known that the symbology of Kemet is the mushroom. Here again, the mushroom mother of Asar. And here again, look at this picture. Another one. This time is blue, as we said before, blue and green because the mushroom bruises blue. There's a picture of mushroom there again. And there's Asar in his mushroom form, right? Stem and cap. All in this symbology. Look at this. These are the Anunnaki, right? Anunnaki statues and architecture. Look at the DNA strands, right? The double helix strands was his first discovery. Y'all remember this discovery? We talked about it many times, probably in the Moorish Science Temple. Look at that. It's a mushroom body, if you ask me. Same as the Asar, right? Here's a stem. Here's a cap. Why are the arms always folded and depicted like this? What is it trying to tell us? Did the Anunnaki visit us, or do we visit them by ingesting the mushroom and meet them and draw and demonstrate these in code in their language so we would understand how to get back to meet them? I want you guys to see stem and cap, right? He won't know about this, but we should know. And again, shoot, man, I mean, how many times can we see it? Here is the mushroom form of Asar with the mushroom cap, with the mushrooms caps being placed before him. Stem, and here's the cap, circle in the circle. There's a mushroom under his chair. Look at that. And here, Anubis here is holding, you see, look at that again, mushroom cap, stem and cap. And Anubis here is holding a mushroom hidden in the hieroglyph right here, stem and cap, right? Anubis, the god of the dead, quote unquote. What do we learn about mushrooms, right? Well, mushrooms recycle the dead. So Asar is being fed these mushrooms while Anubis holds a mushroom in his shoulder. I just put a picture of some dried caps that I've got at home so y'all can see circle in the circle, right? These aren't circles anymore because I mashed them up, but y'all get it. Look at this top of her head, mushroom right there growing out of her head. We're going to see a lot of mushrooms growing out of people's heads in the next few images. Square and compass. I don't know about you, but I don't believe in coincidences no more. So when I see this symbol, I'm like, square and compass, yep. The Masons, we know what they do. We know the fezzes they wear. They hold the secrets of Kemet and the Moorish secrets from our people with their symbols. We always talk about that. Ain't nothing more Moorish than some mushrooms, according to our ancestors. Look at that. You flip it upside down, looks like a mushroom to me, looks like a Asar to me, doesn't it? Right? Even the rod and staff are there. Look at that. Rod and staff of David, right? We've seen this, but just to sort of hit the nail over the head, hit the horse of the head, you can see the eye in the middle of the mushroom square and compass. Look at this now. Wakanda forever, eh? That's what they told us. Looks a lot like a mushroom to me. Is this not the same image? Look at Anubis holding the symbol of the mushroom and the rod and staff, Wakanda forever. And our homeboy here, the Black Panther. And we all know how the Black Panther got his powers, right? Didn't he eat a special herb? Special herb before they buried him in the ground, and he came back with his special powers. And when he ate the herb, didn't he go to the far plain and visit his fathers under the Acacia tree? The Akashic records. Isn't that what he did? Is this different than this? I don't think so. I think this is the same image, if you ask me. Look at that. It's the same mushroom body as Asar and Anubis. It's the same. They're trying to tell us something. And we'll talk more about Black Panther already. We already done know, right? An asteroid hits, because the asteroid hits, this herb sprouts, right? And it gives power. It's the same story, right? An asteroid hit, psilocybin came onto the planet, and we ingested it, and we got our secret powers, right? We all know about the relationships between Wakanda and the Panther in America, right? It's all our stuff. Regardless of where you look in Africa, America, it's all our stuff. It's all the mushroom stuff. Look at this. Even when people are died, aren't they often buried like this? They're buried like this usually. Look at that. They're buried like this. They're buried in respect to the mushroom, because that's where they're going. Look at that. They all know. They're both do the same thing. But he's actually eating the mushroom. That's why he's the only one here who's actually eating the mushroom. He knows what to do. That's why he's crossing his arms like a sar. Look at this picture. This one's crazy, man. Here we got, these actually are not mine. The mushrooms here are not my mushrooms. Well, I just picked them because they're masterfully these mushrooms. He grew a lot more than me. You can see how they look when they're bunched together. Look what Asar is holding in his hand, Ross. Mushroom stems and caps. Can I zoom in here without? Yes, I can. Mushrooms, stem and cap, squiggly shapes. We can see the eye of Haru. Look at that, circle in the circle. Circle in the circle, because the cap is the eye. That was the whole symbology, to understand that the mushroom caps gave the vision. The mushroom caps gave us Haru. They gave us the falcon who sees with piercing sight. Look at that below his chair, all these mushrooms. I told you, the color codes, right? White and brownish red, Indian red. Indian red mushrooms, right? The baby color of the mushroom caps are Indian red. We all know what that means, you know. Here we are dealing with Haru. Why is there a bird standing on top of a mushroom? Do birds do this? No, they do not. Birds do not stand on top of mushrooms, but this one is. Haru is standing on top of a mushroom, and is a mushroom cap, or the disc of Ra, the eye of Ra above him, the son of Ra above him. Again, the bird on the mushroom cap. Our ancestors weren't stupid enough to believe that birds lived on top of mushrooms. It's not about the fact that birds and mushrooms cohabitated. It's about what the mushroom gave us. It gave us Haru, the vision. Here's some more images of the color scheme, right? White at the bottom, reddish brown at the top. Why did we choose these colors and draw them like this? White at the bottom, brownish red at the top. White at the bottom, brownish red at the top. All the color coding is the same, dealing with these mushrooms, this fungi. Now, this, I want to be clear here. Mushrooms and fungi. Mushrooms are actually the sexual portion. You know what I'm saying? Mushroom is, it actually is a penis, is what's funny about it. The mushroom is the penis of the mycelium. When it's ready to sporulate and reproduce itself, it gets erect. The mushroom is the erect penis of the mycelium, and it shoots out spores and into the ground. And that's what it does. So a mushroom actually is a penis, which is why it's being showed here in its phallic state. Caps, look at that. White, brown, Indian red, the mushroom. All over the place. Look at this, inside his leg. You put the image upside down, right? White stem, reddish brown cap. Look at that. All mushrooms inside the leg. Inside his leg. Right? Because when they're babies, look at that, the top, that's what they look like. See? Sort of whitish brown, whitish gray at the bottom, they got that red head at the top, right? That's their color code, same color code. Here we go, that image I talked about earlier about Asar being fed the caps. Here it is. You got the cattle. Why would the cattle be in this image? They're not talking about milk. They're not talking about meat. You got the mushroom caps right up in here. Look at that. And over here again. And they're digging into the mushroom caps, and they're feeding them to Asar as Anubis prepares a way for him, holding the mushroom glyph in his shoulder. And again, Anubis preparing Asar with the mushroom cap right there in the shoulder. Look at this. How much more obvious can you be? I just zoomed in here for these pictures for y'all to see what they're doing with these mushroom caps. See these bowls right here? The half ovals we talked about right here. Early on in the presentation, I mentioned that I think they were putting those bowls into the honey. That's what I think they're dealing with here, right? Feeding the caps to the honey, or in this case, feeding the caps to Osiris, who's entering the land of the dead, right? Because he's entering the land of the dead. That's why he's getting these mushroom glyph. And again, here, I mean, shoot, let's get real deep for a minute. So here's a book. Of course, this guy doesn't talk about the hieroglyphic dictionary. He doesn't talk about the fact that there's a mushroom right here in the damn image. Look at that stem and the cap right there. Obviously differentiated. So we can see clearly that it is a mushroom cap and stem. Look at this word, more. In the Palermo stele, or stele, more is the title of the high priest of Anu. I did some research digging around and I said, well, what does Anu mean? Is it Anubis? Anu means atom. An atom is the smallest possible amount of a chemical element. The smallest possible amount of a chemical element. And this is associated with the more, right? Now look at this right here. This deals with the quantum physics, right? In the quantum realm. Here's Ant-Man. You guys watch Marvel movie. Ant-Man, he gets really, really small, so small. He's as small as like a virus or bacteria. There he is right there. You can see in Super Mario, when you eat the blue mushroom, you shrink, right? It's all in our pop culture, right? You eat the blue mushroom, you become super, super tiny. And that tininess, that quantumness gives you access to the quantum realm or to new worlds in the video game, because you ate the blue mushroom and it made you super small. You shrunk down, you can go anywhere. Our ancestors went to these places. That's how we figured out how to do surgeries and stuff like that, and to deal with chakras and to deal with acupuncture, because we could see small things. That's who we are, right? High priest of Anu. Priest of the quantum realm. Okay, so yes, I put the circle in the circle here because now you got to see this in a bit of a different light now. You know, why did he draw it like this? He came out of Egypt with this. If he came out of Egypt with this, it means that Noble Drew Lee was well aware of the circle within the circle and the eye of Ra, right? Now, here's a small little video talking about this.
Joined the Freemasons? What happened to the Key of Solomon? A recent letter to a lodge in the United States on Dan Brown's own letterhead might reveal truth. Dan Brown has just released a new book called The Lost Symbol. It is based around the circumpunct, circle with a dot in the middle. Scholars say it represents our sun. But new evidence shows that it is not our sun being represented, but another, the star of Ra. Its ties with the leg of the bull, another Egyptian symbol, and the Christ symbol, the sacred cross, are about to be revealed. In ancient Cotton, it shows the meaning of the leg of the bull. It's Egyptian, it was the priestess of Hathor. And here we can see the Big Dipper is not the leg of the bull. It is a perfect match with the Pleiades. And if that is true, the ultimate tomb of the Egyptians has a whole new story to tell. One of the earliest depictions of the Ra symbol is found in the Senmut tomb in Egypt. It has a mural showing all the gods on terra firma, while the narrator points up to the sky at the celestial leg of the bull. It is Taurus. It has the bullhead crown, and Orion shows the way as Horus. The circumpunct is shown in context with the stars, the Pleiades. A whole new meaning comes to light.
Okay, now I can go more into this and watch it, but I want to make sure I get through this lecture. I'm just trying to say that this is the original symbol for the sun god Ra. It's called the circumpunct. It's the circle within the circle. It's a mushroom cap. That's what it is. It's a mushroom cap. And in encountering these mushroom caps, we encountered Ra. We encountered the deity and the family of deities. Now, it's the same thing that we put on top of the evergreen tree. We'll talk more about that why later. And I put these books in here so you all can see, because this little video talks a bit about Mars as well. And once again, I have this book and you can look at it, and there's a lot of stuff in here dealing with all of these concepts. But anyway, what it comes down to is this symbol is the original symbol for the Eye of Ra. And when we see the sun disk, it's just illustrated, it's stylized, in other words. And we may not always see it with the dot in the middle, but that is what it's referring to. Again, this whole thing talks about the bull, and I thought there's always that relationship with the cattle and the sun. Okay, so that's Kemet. I want to move away from Kemet now and begin to talk about how this relates to all the other systems on Earth. And I mean, look at this. This is the Hindustan connection. This is the last king of the Rajput. I believe this is taken in the early 20th century, maybe late 19th century. If this guy doesn't look like a brother to you, then I don't know what more is. But to me, that is a brother. He's not the regular brown, quote unquote Indian man that we see, on TV. Looks like a poo. This guy looks like me and you. Look at him. And look what he's wearing. You trying to tell me that this getup is not the same as this getup? I think it's the same. And we're going to talk about this specific symbol right here, the circle in the circle. So in the Hindustan tradition, you have Shiva, and of course, you also have Krishna, and you have the sacred cow that is always accompanying him. Now, Krishna ain't blue for nothing. His nickname is the dark-skinned Lord, and he's blue, and he's always shown with the cow because why? Again, the cow gives birth to the blue mushroom, and the stories of which Krishna is protagonist, the Ramayana, the Bhagavad Gita, all that stuff deals with entheogenic warfare and entheogenic journeys that he took. That's what those books are, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata. Here is Shiva. Check this out now. Shiva has an erect penis right here. Why are they showing that? Because the mushroom could be ingested and its constituents would pass through the urine. So in the tradition, they would drink the urine from the penis of Shiva because Shiva had consumed the mushroom. And by consuming the urine of Shiva, they would also consume the mushroom and its constituents would pass through the urine. And that is why we have the erect phallus here. So you can clearly see also erect because, like I said, the mushroom gives high level of sexual activity, very, very, very erotic feelings, high sexual arousal. So he's erect, he's hard as hell. And the urine, look at these symbols here. We're gonna check this out a bit more closely later on, right? But stem and the cat. Stem, right? The arm is the stem, circle is the cat. And that's the Shiva and Krishna tradition of their religion, right? Earliest record of possible use in ancient Vedic hymns of India, urine drinking associated with mushroom intoxication, mentioned in the Rig Veda, as hypothesized by Watson. Psilocybin may have been the actual psychoactive agent, which I think that it was, right? 17th, 18th century in Siberia, Amanita-related urine drinking by reindeer herdsmen of Siberia, like the psilocybin was used as well. So this is just going again, talking about some of the chemistry and talking about the fact that it is known that this was an entheogenic symbol. The weight of evidence suggests that soma, the ancient ritual drink, has been prepared from the mushrooms of family Strophaceae, which contains the unique nervous system stimulator psilocybin. This is from her book, Natalia V. Polosman. Check it out. Yeah, and like I said, this is why we focus on the erection of the penis. But this is all mushroom symbology, entheogenic symbology. And again, look at this. This guy doesn't need an umbrella, okay? Because it's not raining, first of all, and he's not alive. He's a statue. But yet here is an umbrella out of his head? Or does it mean that I am under the influence of the mushroom? As we'll see, a lot of times these leaders and organizations have this umbrella. Why? Look at this. Here is a picture of Haru with the mushroom growing out of his head and a bird on top. Here's what we saw earlier. Here's another one, right? An image. You can see behind him is a mushroom disc and a mushroom growing out of his head. You know, that's not an umbrella. If that's not an umbrella, then neither is that, and neither is that. Because we all know that this would have came first anyway. So here is the mushroom saying, I am under the influence of the mushroom. That's why I'm blue. Here's Anji and Hanuman from the Mahabharata. Again, mushrooms, right? Here we go, dealing with mushroom caps, holding mushrooms in this symbology from their statues of the monkey kings holding mushrooms, right? Again, the dark-skinned Lord on top of a mushroom here, conversing with his wife, I think it is. Here's Krishna in dark skin, right, with the cap behind his head on a mushroom, Look at this. The symbol, Krishna is always wearing this symbol. If you look at all his pictures, he's often wearing this symbol, this necklace. Circle in the circle with the rays coming out. Circle in the circle with the rays coming out. Circle in the circle with the rays coming out. And circle in the circle with the rays coming out. This symbol is the same as this symbol, if you ask me. It's the same as this. Nobody really knew about this. That's why he's wearing these symbols. They are both aware of what it meant. Right there. Right? And him too, look at this. The statue of Shiva himself. Look at that. Circle in the circle. It's not all the same image. It's all the same image, man. It's all the same image. Look at the lingam and yoni, right? Here's a stem, and here is the cap. I know this stuff is stylized, and they do stylize it in code and also make it look cool. But it's the same concept of the stem and the cap. You get it everywhere. Stem, this is a real one, actually. Stem and the cap that I took. And stem, that's not a mushroom right there. Look at this. He's holding it right here. The stem and the cap of the mushroom. It's so obvious, right? I mean, shoot, man. Here are the gills. Here are the gills. Here's the stem. Here's the stem. Here's the cap. Here's the cap. Look at Buddhism. We all know who the Buddhists were because look at the hair. And again, stem and cap. This mushroom symbology is just everywhere, right? You see the cap behind his head and he's the stem. I had to put this in here. Well, not for you guys. You already know, right? Here's a book, The Ancient Origins of Buddha, Egypt. And here he is, again, circling the circle, right? Stylized mushroom caps. And here he is, stem. Why is this always behind? Why is this always behind all these saints? Why? Why is the halo always there? What does it really mean? I'll tell you what it means, man. It's a mushroom cap because that's how you get access to the informational structures that led to the things that these people were speaking about, that our ancestors spoke about, right? Ancient Egyptian Buddha. If it's Egypt, you already know what it is. This is just more proof that Buddha is a more for those fools who don't like to accept that Buddha is a more. Here is more. We don't need to see all this stuff. I'm just trying to let those people know who aren't familiar with the history, with Moorish history, that we were everywhere, right? And these people are us too. Here's the Buddha himself again. I mean, outlined, right? Looks like a baby mushroom. Look at the outline. Why is the outline there? Stem and cap, right? Stem and cap, right? Fat stem, like the baby mushroom we saw earlier. Small little cap, stem and cap. Again, always the same image. How prevalent is the mushroom symbology? The blue umbrella. I mean, for God's sakes, now the umbrella's blue. We talked about the mushroom being blue already. Here we go. The blue umbrella, stem and cap. It's not raining. It's not raining. So why is she wearing this umbrella in the sunshine? He's not wearing one, and it's blue because the psilocybin mushroom bruises blue. And again, here he is, a mushroom out of his crown, and here's the umbrella. I am under the influence of the mushroom. Dalai Lama, good Lord. Everyone's got umbrellas, man. I mean, it's not raining out here. These guys don't even carry the mushroom for themselves. They just put it over him because he's the one who takes the mushroom because he's Dalai Lama. Now you could say, oh, well, they're hot. That's why they're wearing umbrellas, because they're hot. When's the last time you went out to the beach and you brought an umbrella with you? That doesn't make any sense, man. People don't put up umbrellas because of the sunshine. Do you walk down the street and see folks walking around with umbrellas? Absolutely not. When it rains, they do that, okay? When it rains. It's because they're paying homage to the Dalai Lama and he's paying homage to the mushroom, right? Look at that. Same shit. Here he is on his little throne, mushroom stem and the cap coming out. It's not raining. I mean, he's indoors, for God's sakes. There's no need for this umbrella. So why is it there? Because he's under the influence of the mushroom, just like him. This is a person who's recently named a new chief in I believe it was Ghana. If I'm wrong about that, don't crucify me. I believe it was Ghana. I mean, shoot, man, they don't walk around with umbrellas in Africa. They don't walk around with umbrellas in Africa. They don't. But this guy is. Only him. Why? Because he is under the authority of the mushroom, trusted with this information. Because as it became scarce, we couldn't all take it anymore. So we selected a small group of people and we said, you guys take the mushroom and tell us what God said. And that is why the king was considered to be the messenger between God and the people, because the king takes the mushroom. The king is under the influence of the mushroom because we cannot take the mushroom because there's not enough to go around anymore. Mandalas, magic carpets. You take a high enough dose of psilocybin, and these magic carpets are places. They're not just carpets. They're places. You take a high enough dose of psilocybin, you look inside that carpet, you're going to go there. You're going to end up wherever it meant to take you. And look at the shape, same shape. It's circles, circles within circles. It's all mushroom cap symbology. Look at that. He's on a flower, really. Stem and a cap, if you ask me. All of it is mushroom symbology. Look at that. The mandalas again. I know it's the same. Look at this. This is a church. This is like, we don't be in Christianity yet. That's the same symbol. It's not the same symbol. This is the same as this. This is a mandala. That's from the Buddhist practice. They're mandalas that they have. And look at that. It's on the church. No, these guys aren't worshiping no Dalai Lama. So why do they have this symbol? Because it's a mushroom cap. It's a stylized mushroom cap. Here we're talking about the Islamic connection. Look at this. I know we're running out of time, so I'm gonna go through this part relatively quickly, but look at this, the horns and the star, right? I know it's sideways here, but if you flip it, horns and the star, horns and the star, horns and the star, horns and the star, or in this case, the eye of Sauron, the eye of Ra, which is a star. It's all the same symbology, but it gives you the vision. That's why I have it here in Lord of the Rings. Right? I don't know about y'all, but this to me, horns and star, looks really, really obvious to me. Oh, I still got time left, Gujo. Okay, you're the man. Appreciate it, man. All right, so yeah, and here he is. I mean, you're trying to tell me that coming out of Egypt, Noble Drew Ali did not know this? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He knew about all this stuff. And he was waiting for us to catch on. That's why he said signs and symbols are for men of understanding. You won't know what I brought you till later. Again, I'm being facetious. Sometimes I can't help myself. But just look for a second, okay? Look for a second. I want you to think just for a second. This is The Lion King. I love this movie. It's probably my favorite movie ever, right? You can all say the same. Everyone loves The Lion King. Horns and the star, right? Horns and the star. Is that not the same? Why? Because The Lion King is the story of Ra. The Lion King is the story of Heru, right? Right? Set kills Asar and banishes his nephew Heru from the kingdom, who then amasses his own army and comes back to take back his father's throne from his evil uncle. That's The Lion King. Even in Lion King, they go to court. There's a scene in Lion King where they go to court. Remember that? Simba, are you guilty? Do your subjects know the truth? are you guilty? Simba says, yes, I'm guilty. There's a court scene in The Lion King. There's a court scene in the actual story. I have the story. You can look it up in Ra Unefer Amen's book, The Matronetter. It is the story involves Haru and Set going to court when they couldn't settle their differences face to face or on the battlefield. Sorry. If you're telling me that this isn't a purposeful copy of this, then I don't know what to say to y'all, because to me, that is the exact same image of the exact same story, the exact same family of deities that we met in the mushroom. Look at Noble Julie's genius. Look at that. This is a Hawaiian king or Hawaiian official. Circle 7 on his little pendant thing right there. Circle 7. Circle 7. Right, here we go. With the image of the upside down pyramid on the a dollar bill, right? 7. 7. Circle in the circle. The logos. Let's talk about this for a minute. So this is Terence McKenna, again, talking about his experience with psilocybin in the 70s. Psilocybin, McKenna discovered, is a phosphorylated form of DMT. It's the same chemical we produce in our brains. It allowed him to dialogue with a seemingly alien entity he called, among other names, the mushroom, the teaching voice, and the logos. He identified the voice of the mushroom with the logos. Psilocybin and DMT invoke the logos, he said, although DMT is more intense and more brief in its action. This means that they work directly on the language center, so that an important aspect of the experience is the interior dialogue. As soon as one discovers this about psilocybin and about tryptamines in general, one must decide whether or not to enter into the dialogue and to try to make sense of the incoming signal. This is what I have attempted. It is the emergence of an I-thou relationship between the person taking the psilocybin and the state it invokes. Jung calls this transference, and it was the necessary condition of early and primitive humanity's relationship to its gods and demons. The mushroom speaks, which indeed it does, and our opinions rest upon what it tells eloquently of itself in the cool of the night. Here's an example of what the mushroom has said to Terence McKenna. I am old, older than thought in your species, which is itself 50 times older than your history. Though I have been on earth for ages, I am from the stars. This is the mushroom speaking. This is the logo speaking. My home is no one planet, for many worlds scattered through the shining disk of the galaxy have conditions which allow my spores an opportunity for life. The mushroom which you see is the part of my body given to sex thrills and sunbathing. Lower self, just like Eden, think about that. My true body, just like man is not the body, right? My true body is a fine network of fibers going through the soil. These networks may cover acres and may have far more connections than the number in the human brain. So we can keep reading on with this stuff. It's not particularly important. I'll read the last part here. Across the ends of time and space drift many spore-forming life forms suspended animation for millions of years until contact is made with a suitable environment. Symbiosis is a relation of mutual dependence and positive benefits for both of the species involved. Symbiotic relationships between myself and civilized forms of higher animals have been established many times and in many places throughout the long ages of my development. So we know that Muhammad is the founder of the uniting of Islam, which means that Islam was partly divided, doesn't it? He united Islam, so that means it was divided. So where did it originate before it spread? Before it was divided, where did it originate? And I'm arguing it originated here with the Entheogens of Egypt, because Hagar, from whom Muhammad is descended, is the daughter of the king of Egypt in their tradition. And she has a unique experience that nobody else in the Torah Tanakh has. Only Hagar has this. Only Hagar, the princess of Egypt, who knows the ways of Egypt, has this experience. Check this out. And she called the Lord who spoke to her. You are El Roy. I'm gonna, you know what? I gotta show you guys what I wrote here in the bottom section of this, so you can see. You are El Roy. What does El Roy mean? The God of seeing. So once again, we have this concept of sight, the vision, the God of vision, the God of seeing. You are El Roy, by which she meant, have I not gone on seeing after he saw me? Therefore, the well was called Bir Laha Roy, which means the well of the living one who sees me. It's all about the eyes. It's all about the vision. She's the only person in the entire scripture, this princess of Egypt, who gives God a name. Nobody else is allowed to name God, but only Hagar is allowed to give God her own name, which she names the God of seeing. Interesting, right? I actually hated this blog talk. Thought it was boring as hell, but it does talk about some of the relationship between Islam and psychedelics. And also, here is some of the research papers which talk about the nature of entheogenic use in Islam and world religions in general, because they try to make it seem as if Islam is as if psilocybin and entheogens aren't part of the Prophet Muhammad's experience, but they certainly would have been, being that he is descended from Egypt and that his teacher was Gabriel, which we all know to be an angel. Again, angels are what? They are deities, interdimensional deities who we encountered through the mushroom. Can I click on this? Click on that. If I can pull up this. Okay, well, I guess it's not really working, but you guys can, I can send this out to you guys later. The research paper talking about Muhammad's specific experience with the entheogenic mushroom known as Amanita muscaria. And we can talk about more about these research papers later. So here we come to the truth, finally, about the Akashic records. Because I'm talking about mushrooms all the time. You're probably thinking, well, what the hell does that have to do with the Akashic records? Well, now I'm gonna tell you what it means. The mushroom became scarce. It said you can keep us by storing us in honey, or you can recreate us by taking the bark of the acacia tree or the leaves of the acacia tree and mixing it with that of the blue lotus flower or the white lotus flower. Mixing of the acacia tree with the lotus flower produces a brew. When you ingest the brew, that is what provides access to the Akashic or Akashic records. The Akashic or the Akashic records are the records of the acacia tree. Akasha records, Akasha tree. Akashic records, acacia tree. The Akashic records are the records of the acacia tree that you access by brewing the leaves of the tree together and ingesting them. The acacia tree is an entheogen. The Akashic records are an entheogen. The leaves, bark of the acacia brewed with the Peganum harmala, also called the Syrian rue, contains a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, a harmaline. So basically, that's stomach acid. That's basically, if you were to just DMT, your stomach acid would destroy it and it would never get to the blood-brain barrier. But we have certain things that can inhibit the production of the monoamine oxidase, so that way the DMT can travel into the bloodstream and pass the blood-brain barrier. In Arabic, the Peganum harmala, which we mix with the acacia tree. So in Arabic, this harmala is called harmal, which, according to Islamic tradition, expels devils and averts misfortune. And that's from this research paper. It's a hadith of Prophet Muhammad. Whoever takes mithqual of harmal in water for 40 mornings each day, so shall wisdom enlighten his heart, and he shall be healed of or immune to 72 diseases. That's a research paper from Roots. This is entheogenic stuff they're talking about. You ingest this entheogen, this inhibitor. We produce DMT all the time, but we break it down. But the pineal gland produces harmaline, or you can take the harmaline from an outside source to allow the DMT of the acacia to travel through the bloodstream and into the brain. So this is all hadiths, but they are entheogenic in nature. Of course, the Quran of Mecca was not revealed in Arabic, though, was it even? It was revealed in Arabic's ancestor, which is what? The language of Mudar. Mudar is the language that fathered Arabic, and the Kirish is a dialect of that language. And Mudar is the Kemetic word for language. It's the mother to Aramaic, Hebrew, and Arabic. And Mudar was originally spoken in Kemet. This is all from the Arabic language from the book by Anwar Chene. So Mudar are the language that we spoke in Kemet, was the language that then produced Aramaic, Hebrew, and Arabic. So all the culture of these languages come out of our culture, our entheogenic culture. Okay, so let's look at this. Oftentimes we see a Sar depicted in green with green skin. And, there are some, some of the 1%ers and 5%ers would say, well, the skin was green because melanin used to react differently to our atmosphere, because our atmosphere was highly oxygenated and had lots of copper, so we responded differently, so we had green skin. Or was it because the tribe of Judah is an emerald stone? That's their symbol. Or is it because the green men are a depiction of the old time religion? Let's dive in, because in Islam, the word al-Khidir means the green one, or the green man. He's a very important person in Islam. But of course, the green man is a Sar, isn't it? The green man is a Sar, and he takes a very important role in Islam. Let's take a look. Al-Qadir, aka the green one. And here's a book by Hugh Hallman, The Quranic Story of the Green One and Moses. In Sufi commentaries is a model of spiritual guidance. We all know that more science is basically Sufi. The Sufis and us, we get along, we understand the role of nature, which is mushrooms involved in the theories with the Pisces, the fish, right? The Pisces symbol. The green one with the mushroom cap, again, behind his head. And here's a quote: "In that wilderness, I lived for 4 years. God gave me my eating without any toil of mine. Qadir, the green ancient, was my companion during that time. He taught me the great name of God." The green one taught him that. And who's the green one? Right? Yoda even is the green one. The Sufis, which, as we are widely informed, this is a book, from Idris, check it out, which, as we are widely informed, simply means wise. The word could occur anywhere and need not be a translation from Arabic or anything else. Wise is a name used by dervish cults and also by the followers of other more or less undiluted traditions. In Spanish, the word for witch is bruja, and it is in Spain that we find early, relatively complete accounts of the rituals and beliefs of the people of Western Europe who celebrated similar festivities were considered by the church to be votaries of the Black One. The term old religion, and again, there it is, old-time religion, an old religion, which witches and others accept as an indication of the prehistoric origins of the cult, is a standard Sufi phrase, often used as antique faith, old one, ancient tradition. And take a look at this one. Here's our green man. We all know that this would have been these symbols that we drew on the walls are the first before any of these other symbols, okay? So here's a Sar with green skin in mushroom form, with his hands in the shape of the mushroom veil, wearing the mushroom crown cap over his head. And what does it say? Walking with the green man, also known as the Moorish men. There were some further implication that dancing that accompanied some of the festivals in the form of Moorish men were reputedly the attendants of the king of the wood. As the king, Jack in the Green, or the green man, passed amongst the people, they were entertained by the Moorish men, who performed ritual dances and rhymes for their amusement. There was little doubt that many of these dances had roots in pagan culture, quote unquote, and were a distinctive part of the overall green man ethos. The origin of the word Moorish is obscure, but some sources have suggested that it may derive from the word Moor, or blackamoor, especially because some dancers originally blackened their faces, perhaps to resemble underworld spirits. In medieval times, when Christianity was at war with Moorish Islam, this description would have held rather dubious connotations. Furthermore, many people of North African and Middle Eastern origin were believed to be skilled in the arts of black magic, herbs, and potions, and were greatly opposed to Christians. Therefore, the incorporation of such individuals into the revelries added a supernatural and dangerous note. The idea of the hostile Moor, concealed amongst the everyday medieval world, just as the green man, Asar, in Islam too, right? Himself was concealed amongst the foliage of the forest, must indeed have been a highly potent symbol and may well have added to the image of concealment. So again, just showing that all this green man stuff comes out of the Kemetic entheogenic tradition, with Asar being shown as the green one, the Al-Qadir in Islamic tradition. Go back far enough, right? And it's all Moorish every single time. Okay, I've been waiting to get this to y'all because this is the best part of the presentation, I think, as far as religions go, because most of us grew up Christian. I grew up in an Adventist household. And yeah, so to me, this was spectacularly fascinating. And don't tell me that you don't see the mushroom door as you enter the womb of the cathedral. If that ain't a hidden mushroom, then I don't know what to tell y'all, man. I mean, how many times can we see the image already? Here's a mushroom. That's the door. Entering the mushroom, entering the womb of the cathedral. Here's our guy. Take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. Take the red pill, you say Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. What does this red pill, blue pill stuff really mean, though? It means this. Here's the red pill, and here's the blue pill. The red mushroom and the blue mushroom. Red pill, blue pill. Red pill. Sometimes, like I said in the previous, to the red pill become a slave to reality. This is supposed to be something that actually gives you power over people, like Dracula, When Dracula bites into a person's flesh and the blood squirts out, it's just like it's biting into the mushroom when the red squirts out. And Dracula took power over people. This is the blood mushroom that the Christians have been using for a long time to take power over our people. And I'm going to talk about, I'll show you how in a moment. Look here. The Matrix again, the white rabbit of the Matrix. Alice in Wonderland, the white rabbit, eating a mushroom. What's all this white rabbit stuff going on? Okay, I got you, Cujo. All right, 50 more minutes and we'll go to questions. Yeah, we watch it all you want because that's what it's here for. But I gotta get to the Christian stuff because this stuff is just amazing. So I got this book. I read it through and highlighted the shit out of this book because it's just so amazing. But the psychedelic gospels, the secret history of hallucinogens in Christianity, and we know that Catholicism is the mystery system of Kemet, right? They ripped Catholicism off the walls. We were already practicing Catholicism. Catholicism was our Gnostic system of entheogen use. That's essentially what it was. And we're going to see more of that later. But the Gnostic Gospels, which were found, again, in Egypt, not too long ago, as an archaeological discovery, predate the Gospels of the New Testament by quite some time. And here are some quotes from the original Gospels, the Gnostic Gospels that we wrote, our ancestors wrote. I am not your master. Because you have drunk, you have become intoxicated from the bubbling spring which I have measured out. He who will drink from my mouth will become like me. I shall become he, and the things that are hidden will be revealed to him. You're going to see soon that they used to turn the Aminata mushroom into a brew, into the wine. That's in the literature. Here it is right here. Let's keep going. Then I opened my mouth, and behold, he reached me a cup, which was full as it were with water, but the color of it was like fire. Second address. That's scripture. It's all scripture. If you become my disciples and listen to my words, these stones will minister to you. For there are 5 trees for you in paradise which remain undisturbed summer and winter. There's only one tree that's undisturbed summer and winter. That's the evergreen tree. And what grows beneath the evergreen tree? The Amanita muscaria mushroom. The red mushroom grows beneath the evergreen trees. That's why you put presents under the Christmas tree in red and white wrapping paper. That's why, because they're the mushroom, and whose leaves do not fall. Whoever becomes acquainted with them will not experience death. That's from the Gospel of Thomas and the Gnostic Gospels. Check this out. This is a research paper from the Journal of Psychedelic Studies, Getting High with the Most High, and we're going to investigate this research paper more later on when we look at brain chemistry in Israelites. Psychoactive alkaloids were extracted into wine in ancient Greek, Chinese, Saison, and many other cultures. That's what right there. Psychoactive alkaloids were extracted into wine in ancient Greek and other cultures. He reached me a full cup, which was filled with water, but the color of it was like fire. Sounds like wine to me. I wanted to actually read a couple passages from these pages because I just couldn't go on without reading them to you because they're just so obvious. Okay, here's a passage that I will read to you. This is from page 203 in the book that we see here, the Psychedelic Gospels. Jesus is referring to conifer trees, I said, evergreens like the pine, the cedar, and the spruce that never lose their leaves. In fact, conifers are one of the main hosts of Amanita muscaria, whose invisible spores germinate in the humus of fallen pine needles. But, Julie said, Amanitas don't grow near sea level or on the Mediterranean or in the hills surrounding Judea, but they do grow in the higher latitudes of the Middle East and could have been found under the cedar trees of Lebanon 2,000 years ago, or even on Mount Horeb, where Moses encountered the burning bush. Another passage. This is from the Gnostic Gospel of Philip, where we learn that Jesus worked through a mysterious initiation that involved anointing the initiate with chrism. Chrism, as in Christ, a consecrated oil. And it is because of the chrism that the Christ has its name. It is because of the chrism that the Christ has its name. For the Father anointed the Son with oil, right? The Father anointed the Son, and the Son anointed the apostles, and the apostles anointed us. He who has been anointed possesses everything. He possesses the resurrection, the light, the cross, the Holy Spirit. The Father gave him this in the bridal chamber. He merely accepted the gift. This is the kingdom of heaven. This refers to a secret initiation, which was conducted in 5 stages. The Lord did everything in a mystery, a baptism and a chrism and a Eucharist and a redemption and a bridal chamber. The entire initiation is referred to as the bridal chamber to symbolize the initiate's union with the divine. In this ritual, the Gnostic Gospels are talking about the original Gospels, our Gospels. In this ritual, Jesus initiated his disciples with an anointing oil that was warm and the color of fire, and subsequently consecrated the bread and the cup of the Eucharist, the sacrament of the Holy Union. The consecrated bread is bread from heaven. To partake of the bread and the cup is to receive the flesh and the blood of Jesus, aka the flesh and the blood of the mushroom. The consecrated, he who shall not eat my flesh and drink my blood has not life in him. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I give, or the bread that I will give, is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. Whoso eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood hath eternal life, and I will raise him up in the last day. Huh. Well, I'll be damned. I mean, shoot. We used to think it was a cannibalistic ritual these guys were practicing, and maybe it was. Maybe they thought it was actual flesh and blood we're supposed to be eating, but it isn't. Because the Amanita muscaria has a very bread-like texture. If you touch it, you can peel it off. You can kind of pull it up. It's kind of cloudy and flaky like bread, and it produces a red water. If you soak it in water, the water becomes blood red, and you can infuse it in wine or just drink it, and that's the wine. The blood and flesh is the mushroom. That is what the Gnostic Gospels, what the original Gospels were talking about was Jesus. The teacher was the mushroom, is basically what we're talking about here. And of course, this is a great book lots of references, but there's so much more literature on this stuff in Christianity that I mean, I can only fit in so much in the presentation, so much of it. But just take in the fact that these things are referring to the informational structures bestowed upon us when we ingested the mushroom, the eternal life, no fear of death that we learn from ingesting these mushrooms, because the mushroom gives subjective proof that there is something more. Now look at this symbol here, because the mushrooms grow like this, right? They kind of grow with little mushrooms that grow from their stems. And the pop, look at this. This is Avatar. We all know the Avatar. We're Moors, right? Avatar, last same. What's the difference? What's the difference? It's the exact same images, stem and cap, stem and cap, and the hands coming out being the little mushroom clones coming from the stem, right? It's in all the popular culture. It's everywhere. This is from the fire temple in Avatar, the Last Airbender, right? On the temple walls, you have the mushroom. Look at it, the cap right here, the stem, and the little clones being the hands. Look at Noble Julie. Look at that. Stem. We know the sombrero. We're going to talk about the sombrero later on being the mushroom cat, because we're going to look at the legend of Zorro. And in the legend of Zorro, in the original Zorro legends, Zorro wears a big sombrero and he delivers mushrooms. And that's the Mexican culture that we are seeing right here. To me, all these images look exactly the same. I don't see nothing different. Nothing different. Noble Julie knew because he came from Kemet. Look at this. Again, the circle, and the circle here are the spores, and here are the lines, and here are the lines coming out of the cap behind Jesus's head. Right? All the saints always have this damn cap behind their head because they all knew the secret. Right? Mushroom stems and caps everywhere. Everywhere we look. Right? In the stylized pictures. Cap. Stylized, but circle in the circle, you can see it. Look at this. Mushroom again, right? Look at this. This is a mushroom that's been decapitated. You get it? Yeah. So stem, cap right here. And stem and cap. Is this not the same image as this? Look at this. The lines coming out, the gills, the stem, and the cap. Look at this. The stem, the cap, and the gills coming out of the sides. It's the exact same image. They know what's going on. Cujo did a great lecture one time. Cujo did the lecture talking about Christianity, talking about its sun worship. And he talked about the bishops, right? You have the bishops, the cardinals, you know, the Pope, the cardinals, the bishops, blah, 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 that whole hierarchy. Look at this. This is from Bridget Jones' diary. In the scene where they're mimicking tarts and vikers, so priests, even Bridget Jones' diary writers know. It's all about Amenemhotep Scary Mushroom. It's in the movie. The priest sits on the mushroom cat because that's where it gets information from. Look at this, the colors, red and white, red and white. Look at that. This is how the mushroom looks when it's young, right? The little egg. And this, like just like the hat, same thing, right? Because like this, and it becomes this, right? Same images, same symbology. Look at here. Red and white. Look at that big red cap. Come on, man. How obvious can you be? Look at this guy. Red and white. Look at this guy. He's got a mushroom in. Look at this. It's right beside him on the chair. Look at that. Stem mushroom cap. Why is that there? Why is that there? Here's a cardinal. Cardinals. Red bird, right? Here's a phoenix. Again. Red and white. Red and white everywhere. Red and white mushroom caps. The Pope. Red and white. Because he knows what's going on out here. These guys are on our high as we speak, finding out ways to further other power structures using the mushroom. Right? The shaman of Siberia, dressed in red and white, they collect mushrooms that grow beneath evergreen trees, and they hang them on the tree to dry. I mean, shit. When we have Christmas trees, what do we do with Christmas trees? We bring them in, we hang decorations on them, usually red and white. That's a tradition. because the shaman cut the mushrooms and they dry them on the trees by hanging them. They collect them from below the trees and dry them on the trees. And the reindeer eating them, and the reindeer getting high, and they're prancing. And after the shaman come home with the mushrooms, sometimes the snow is so high they can't get in the house through the front door, so they go through the chimney. The mushroom shamans go through the chimney, not the front door when the snow is too high, with the mushrooms, red and white. I mean, it's all, look at this, here we go. Oh my God, why is everything mushroom? It's Christmas. Is it supposed to be about Jesus' birthday? No, it's all about mushrooms. The Christ Mass, the mushroom celebration, the Christ Mass, the Chrism Mass. Look at that. This is why Christmas wasn't, this is why Christmas was illegal before 1905, wasn't it? Because they knew, shit, man, this is a mushroom celebration. We can't sell this stuff. Again, here's a symbol, the symbol of Asar, the mushroom body, the symbol of Wakanda. This is a philosopher, a Christian philosopher, a Christian mystic. Look at the symbol he's using. Isn't that the symbol that we talked about before of the rod and staff, the mushroom body of Asar? Look at it. Jacob Boehme had visions which revealed to him a special vocation from God, the spiritual structure of the world, the relationship between God, man, good and evil, and the unity of the cosmos. From his artwork and testimony, we can deduce the source of his visions, or they called it sacred schizophrenia, whatever. In 1/4 of an hour, I saw and knew more than if I had spent many years at a university, for I saw and knew the being of all things. This is him telling you what he saw on his mushroom trip, because he's the mushroom right here. Look at the symbol. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in a sacred manner the shapes of all things in the spirit, and the shape of all shapes as they must live together like one being. One of the first things you'll notice, and this is the Black Elk Society. We know that Noble Jolie dealt with them in Toronto, right, when he was first here. But we know one of the first things that happens in the onset of this psilocybin is that you begin to see the shape of subatomic particles, right? Because we're talking about the quantum realm, subatomic shapes, subatomic particles. You begin to see the shapes of atoms and their constituents if you look in the air, because that's sacred geometry. We just in the mushroom, we began to learn about geometry and sacred geometry and architecture, and that's when we began to build these great things that we saw, because we saw them when we ingested the mushroom. I learned more about psychology in the 5 hours after taking these mushrooms than the preceding 15 years of studying and doing research in psychology. Timothy Leary. Again, from Jacob Boehme. I never decided to know anything of the divine majesty. I sought only after the heart of Jesus Christ, that I might hide myself therein from the wrathful anger of God and the violent assaults of the devil. And I mean, here's the symbol that he drew himself. And what is this? This to me is look at that. That's a mushroom hidden in the cross, y'all. It's a mushroom. Look at that. Here's a cap right there. Here's a stem. It's a mushroom hidden in the cross that he drove. All right, so we're gonna stop this for the time being, so I can answer some questions. At least now I have an idea of how long we're almost finished anyway. It's pretty close to the end here. But we almost made it. We'll get to the end next time. But yeah, let's get to some of the questions and answer. I'm trying to figure this out. Okay, I think I'm here, Cujo. I can see questions on the screen if there are any. Let me know if you can still see and hear me, and let's do the question thing.
Did we get to the difference
Please, we could hear you.
between the red and blue?
Yeah, you want to bring?
What up?
Did we get to the difference between the red and blue mushroom?
The red and blue mushroom, the difference as in terms of their ingestion or in terms of their physical difference? So,
I missed a little bit, so I'm
okay,
sorry.
yeah, no problem. Well, number one, they grow in different climates and they grow in different regions. And the experience of them is quite different. Psilocybin, as the original one that our ancestors used, really has absolutely no physical side effects, and it deals with mostly history. It deals with the stars. It deals with lost technologies. It deals with other galaxies. It deals with sort of the grand scale of history from a galactic perspective. Not just this Earth, but other ones as well. And it deals with many places that our ancestors traveled and made monuments to in their own temples, having gone to these places and then come back. Because, like I said before, when the mushrooms became scarce, we couldn't all take them anymore. So we said, okay, you, Cujo, and you, Omar, you guys take the mushrooms and you guys tell us what you saw. You guys tell us what God said. You guys tell us what we're supposed to do next because we can't all take them anymore. So that was the paradigm in Kemet, was a psilocybin paradigm. But in other parts of the world, the Amanita mushroom was a paradigm that was used because that was what was more available, and the experience is different. It's a bit more of a physical experience, but it still gives you the understanding that there is something more, the out-of-body experience, and some people say even the ability to manipulate other people and entities, and that's why it's probably such a prominent thing in the Christian church as well. And from my experience with psilocybin is you take psilocybin and a high enough dose, and you can't that day is shot, right? That day is shot. You can't really do much that day but reflect and sort of debrief. And I think that probably the Amanata experience isn't quite as intense or as long, because psilocybin is only 6 to 8 hours, but you might be there for 1,000 years. You might be there for many eons, self-dissolving as you watch a star system form and things like that. So it's a bit of a different experience, but I think for the most part, really, it's what is most easy to access for that group of people at that time. But both entheogens provide the same sort of subjective proof that there is something more, and they provide you with a reality that is outside the 5 physical senses that we're used to, and that's why they're such a psychologically challenging thing to deal with, but why they're so important to deal with.
Thank you.
Of course, yeah. Any other questions? Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, it doesn't seem so. Everybody's still taking this in right now.
Yeah. I know it's a lot of information. Any of you can contact me at any time. We're all family, and this is for all of us to share and partake in. Noble Julie was well aware of this. He spent time in Egypt, but the state that we were in, this is not information, of course, that we would all have been ready for at the time. He gave us what we could understand at the time, and left the rest for us to discover as time went on, as he knew that we would, right? Study, and study yourselves. I know it's a lot to take in. The fact of the matter is, the presentation, there's still a lot more, because we're going to actually talk about the brain chemistry. This is just symbology. I'm just building a case for the possibility of entheogens being the origins of Islam. I'm building a case for you guys see that it was in our own ancestor symbology. It's not me saying this stuff. They left this stuff there for us to discover. That's why it was there. It was their secret, most sacred practice. It enabled them to do all the amazing things that they did for the world. and it enabled the Moors to do all the things, the amazing things that we did for the world. And but this is just a symbology, because after the symbology, we're going to talk about the actual chemistry, and because the mushroom is exogenous. It's like, it's outside of our body, obviously. But the thing is, the mushroom is an exact, chemically speaking, it's an exact replica of our own endogenous brain chemistry. So really, this stuff is about our own brain chemistry. You don't need the mushroom for this. The mushroom taught us, hey guys, what I am, you are, and here are different ways you can access me. So when we get to the brain chemistry stuff, we're going to talk about what the brain goes through, what the pineal gland's role is in activating these states of novel consciousness, so that we can travel freely in these states. We can travel to the land of the dead if you want to see some of your past relatives and speak with them and learn from them. Because the brain chemistry part is the real deal. That talks about why the mushroom is so important and what it taught us about our own biology and what we can do with our own biology in terms of building up our tryptophan, because it's DMT is just tryptamine. It's just a protein. Tryptophan converts to serotonin. And before bed, when it gets dark outside, it becomes melatonin. And if you stay in darkness long enough, the pineal gland begins to produce the beta carbolines, harmaline, pinealine, and various other beta carbolines, which inhibit the monoamine oxidase, which allow then the melatonin to further polymerize because it's not destroyed. And melatonin becomes DMT in the brain, and that's when we can access these states. And the brain chemistry, of course, that stuff only happens when you are in darkness. 40 days and 4 nights in the cave, for example, or in the dark rooms in the pyramids. We would go into these dark rooms because it would allow our brain chemistry to change. And physically speaking, you can see with your eyes in the infrared. You can see infrared, ultraviolet, right? You can see below red and above red and below violet. We can't see any colors in those outside ranges. But if you were to spend 14 days in complete darkness, well, your brain would begin to register those colors. You would see Cujo's heat signature coming out of him. Even if you're a blind person, you would begin to see. That's what it means to see with the third eye, because all this stuff I'm talking about mushrooms is really just brain chemistry. The mushroom is there to teach us about our own brain chemistry and how to access that. And that's what we're going to get into, the practical applications of Noble Drew Ali's Islamism and how we can do it ourselves, in our temples and with our people, to get a handle and influence this physical reality in the way that we need to move forward as a people. And hopefully, we'll have more classes on this and break it down and stuff like that. And I'll be happy to do classes to teach you guys and to teach the temple how we can produce these entheogens safely, in our own private space. And nobody can say shit, because these entheogens are in the scripture. Okay, it's our religious right. It's our indigenous right. It's our natural right to practice this stuff. This stuff is our people's stuff. It's our stuff. We've been doing it for millions of years. And, it's time for us to get back to the stuff that Noble Drew Ali was introduced to when he went to Kemet. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Any more questions? Like I said, Cujo, this everyone's family. Those, you can give my number out freely to anybody there, or my email address, and y'all can we can build anytime. And yeah, let's continue the presentation next Sunday or whenever Cujo says it's good, and we'll continue on from here and get into some of the other religions.
Yeah, we'll set up for a part two. But if you can in the chat, just put whatever contact information.
Okay,
if you want to say it out, you could say it out as well for people who aren't going to be in the chat later, but are going to see the recording. But give thanks. It was a great presentation, a great part one.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you, and thank all you guys. Again, I'm sorry it was so late. It's more than a year overdue, but I'll try and make it up to you guys, and even come on in for some of those in-person classes for producing the stuff ourselves, either in the privacy of your own home. So you can do it at night. Like I do it every 6 weeks. I do a journey, and I don't want to do them because they're very difficult. But that's where the information is. So we have to do them. But my phone number 647-523-5759. Text me first. Anybody from the temple is welcome to contact me anytime. And my email address, I put it up there on the chat screen. So you're free to bring my phone down, call me up, email me, and we'll build on this. And I love y'all. Thanks for your time.
Islam, more give thanks. Excellent. Excellent. Islam, Moors. So that was part 1. So keep up to date. We'll let you know when part 2 is going to be happening. Next week, Sunday, we're going to be at Christie Pits. So hopefully the weather holds up. It's supposed to be a rainy week this week, they're saying. So that'll be next week, Sunday, 12 o'clock. Starting up Christie Pits. We can meet there a little bit earlier. That would be great. And don't forget our meeting, our New Brunswick planning meeting is Friday, 7:30. This Friday, coming 7:30. The email with the link should be sent out sometime this week. Yeah, you sent it to you. I sent it out to everybody. Any other updates?
We have, the trip happening on the 17th, right? So
Yeah, that's August.
17th, and then there won't be any class on the weekend of the 21st of August. Oh, and then we have the In the Park series in Ajax on Saturday, Sunday, August 7th. Kiva has a park out there that he wants wanting to sort of have us, experience. So that'll be August the 7th.
Any other comments, questions? So, Mars, let's close out. Five on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, Father of the universe. Father of love. Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector. My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. Through her holy prophet. Noble Drew Ali. Islam. Ashe. Islam, Moors. Peace and love.
Okay, you want to see up there now? Come see. See, look. Look, oh, okay, never mind. You just asked me before when it was not a